All right. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Planning Pulse podcast, everybody. My name is Beau Mellin, Senior Solution Consultant here at Active Cyber. I'm joined by Matt Harvison, Principal Practice Lead. We're fired up about this podcast. We're going to be bringing out a lot of great content with our consultants and our customers. Today, we're going to be talking about dashboarding inside of Workday Adaptive Planning. Dashboarding is hands down my favorite feature. It's kind of what I live and breathe inside of Adaptive on my day to day. Now in my solution consulting role, we really love having our customers embrace the dashboarding features and functionality inside of Adaptive Planning. It allows us to bring all of our different templates and forecasts kind of into a centralized place for maybe it's one of your users that's not really even in the system every single day, and they aren't fully comprehensive, always navigating throughout the system. We can kind of send them to one centralized dashboard where they go update the budget and the models that are relevant for them to allow you to also work in those sheets, make updates to your data, see the KPIs, charts, and analytics that are relevant for the specific piece of your organization. Another aspect I really love about them is this, where we can send these dashboards out on a scheduled cadence to other users that maybe are even only view-only access to Adaptive. It's going to allow you guys to have organizational-wide adoption inside of the tool. Kind of one of the other things I also really love about the dashboard features is that they're constantly getting better and new features and functionality are always being added to these. So we really think it's been best practice as we've evolved throughout our implementations at Active Cyber to lean more and more into the dashboarding features and functionality. But I'm fired up for this episode because, like I said, it's one of my favorite features of Adaptive, and so many of our customers are getting such great usage out of the tool. Matt, what do you think about the dashboards inside of Adaptive?
Yeah. I'm glad that you came out and said it first, that it's really your favorite feature because it is mine too. A lot of the things that you highlighted is exactly the reason why it's my favorite feature as well. We can drive all of our users to one place in order to complete the planning process, which everything that you described with the scheduled sort of snapshots and just scheduled distribution, all of that allows us to condense the overall timeline to plan. And when we think about the just timeline to plan in general, inside of Workday Adaptive Planning, that's really what we're trying to do is how do we get more folks in? How do we decrease the time, make it less of a burden so that we can actually get into some actions like monthly rolling forecasts or quarterly forecasting if maybe we're only used to doing an H1 or H2 budget. So a lot of the actions that we have our customers do are a direct result of some of the investment that Workday is continuing to make back into the Workday Adaptive Planning tool for dashboards specifically. You think of the last 3 or 4 years, things that have come out inside of dashboards specifically include text fields that directly on a dashboard. So if you want to give instructions for users, go in here and do this action. Active dashboarding functionality, the ability to drill or to pull a sheet directly onto a dashboard as well. So you're completing the planning process inside of a dashboard. Hyperlinks to reports that just came out recently. So you can actually have Office Connect or web-based reports, direct hyperlink from your dashboard out to those reports. So a lot of great features that allow us to say confidently, we want our customers at the end of an implementation to be operating inside of a dashboard. So when we think about sort of the future, we future of the podcast here really for us is we want to provide our customers and prospects who are looking into Workday Adaptive Planning an opportunity to say, okay, how could I be using this tool? Or if I'm using it already, how could I be doing it better? So today, like you mentioned, the heavy focus on dashboards. We're going to do a lot of tips and tricks and do's and do nots within the tool. I know Beau's got a great demo lined up here for us at the end, but I think it's really important when you think about dashboards specifically is that, we want to have a clear, defined message of what we're trying to accomplish inside of a dashboard, right? Are we doing an executive level summary report? Are we putting something in place for our team to go in and plan inside of? Do we want to, have a good mix of KPIs on the top? We just want to have that clear, defined message. And who is our target audience? Who's going to be using this dashboard? Is it just a summary KPI view? Is it a place for us to come in and plan? So that's the first thing we want to do is we want to have a clear plan whenever we're putting together a dashboard. Outside of just that clear plan, it's really, really important to note that inside of Workday Adaptive Planning, you can do a lot. It's very customizable, very flexible tool. You can get calculations and metrics and all types of drivers, all types of assumption sheets to be able to help put together your plan. But it's really important inside of a dashboard is that we have a concise message. What that means is we want our user to come in, look at the dashboard, and understand what they're seeing on the screen in maybe less than a minute, minute and a half. So while we can put in a lot of KPIs and a lot of color, a lot of sort of pizzazz, if you will, we really want to make sure that it's digestible content. And one of the easiest ways to do that is limit the amount of KPIs that you're putting on there, limit the amount of dashboards to what's relevant to our users, but also keep it on one screen as well. So when we think about one screen, you have the ability to continue sort of scrolling down or going further down into a particular topic, but we want it to be a concise message. We don't want any of our users to maybe miss anything because they didn't know that they had to keep scrolling down. So keep it clear, keep it concise. Those would be the main tips that I would, sort of offer up as a starting point for us. But what type of starting tips do you have for anyone listening?
Yeah, 100%. And where I'm kind of gonna go here is I think a nice transition too, because in our last episode, episode 2, we talked about budget season, and a big part of budget season is what type of version should we be working in, or what version should we be rolling out inside of Adaptive. For some of y'all listening to this podcast that aren't Adaptive users, or versions are different iterations of our forecast, or different budgets, or a rolling forecast, or a best case, worst case baseline we can spin up. Now, inside of Adaptive, inside of the dashboarding functionality, we have our version selector up in the top right. We're going to look at it here in a second when we get into the content. And whichever version of our budget or our forecast we're working in, that's all the data that is going to go ahead and be on screen for us. I think it's a really important thing to take into account is when we set that dashboard up and bring in our model, or bring in a KPI or a chart or a scorecard into that perspective we're taking a look at. It's important that you want to know you're going to have some good, clean data there inside of that version to ensure that all the users you're kind of sending this output to are able to understand what they're looking at, and they're not having to go around and toggle and find your versions. Whenever we start bringing in, 20 different versions into a dashboard or something like that, it can get a little bit confusing in the long run. So keeping it clean, maybe we have a couple iterations of our rolling forecast against our actuals, and maybe a quick best case, worst case scenario inside of one of the dashboards that allows us to quickly and easily be able to be agile if we want to compare different scenarios of our forecast, and ensure that everybody has a clear understanding of which portion of our data are we viewing inside of the company. So I think analyzing your versions is a big piece of it too, Matt.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up versions too. When we think about all of the charts and all of the graphs that you can put inside of a dashboard, they're all dynamic, right? You can select, hey, I want this to change anytime I change my default version. So whenever I go into a dashboard, I know that I'm looking at my relevant version. We want to make sure that we're keeping those dynamic. You have the ability to make them static if you want to do a snapshot in time, but we want to make sure that you've got the ability to go in and make sure that all of the charts, all the graphs, all the dials are set to that dynamic version selection as well. And then, well, you said something really interesting there too. You said it was about clean data. Of course, data is always going to be the most important thing, right? Do we have the right data here? Do we have too much data? Inside of graphs, inside of charts, you have the ability to do like a top 10% or a top 10 customers, or top 10 earning employees. So you've got the ability to put in some of those sort of ways for us to sort of funnel down to the most relevant or most important information for us. But that's another opportunity for us to also consider something like using attributes to further define our groups. So when we think about pulling maybe salary information, if we want to drill in, or if we want to make our chart like a pie graph or something like that, by, let's say, position ID or requisition ID, something like that, you're something that's got the ability to be grouped into larger buckets that may allow you to then pivot further or drill down further once you get from that group, instead of having hundreds and hundreds of different dimensions right there on a chart. So data clarity is absolutely going to be very important. And then the last thing that I'll mention here, I know I kind of sprinkled it at the beginning, is that the most recent release now allows you to put text fields with links to reports as well. So if you're driving all of your users and to one place in order to plan, but there's a report that you know that they're going to need to be able to look at, whether that's an Office Connect or an HTML report, put that hyperlink to the report inside of your dashboard. We found that a lot of our customers like to have that so we can go and plan, see a few KPIs, but maybe there's a larger report that you want to see that wouldn't look maybe too great on a dashboard today. But that is something that a lot of our customers are really liking, is putting links to reports directly inside of dashboards.
I love it. I love it. And I think it's a great segue, Matt, because I'm about to share my screen and we're going to get into a dashboard showing exactly that. So right now, I've just jumped into, if you look in the top left of my screen here, our corporate financial summary. A lot of what we've talked about is driving users into that centralized place. And you can really clearly and efficiently see that up on the top if you're following my cursor, right? A lot of these sheets are what our FP&A teams are working in inside of a daily basis. We like bringing those sheets and those models into the dashboard because you can look and view and plan for your data here, save that change, and immediately see what's important to these KPIs. Matt talked about giving a clear, concise vision. We know that revenue per FTE and EBITDA percentage and year-over-year net income are key metrics that are super important to the organization. So this is what we have right up here, right at the top. Matt talked a little bit about our instructions, right? We can review our income statement to see if we need to make any budget updates in our other tabs here. And lastly, this P&L impact is a huge report we like looking at a lot. So we go ahead and we link that report in. We can go ahead and click on that, and it's going to take us directly to a 3 financial statement report where I can view data from my P&L, data from my balance sheet, and data from my cash flow, and some working capital KPIs down here below, and doing all that from one click of the button from my centralized dashboard, right? We talked a little bit also about your versions being important. You can see right now we're working inside of my working budget. If I go ahead and update that and say, I actually want to see what the Budget Pass 1 version is doing for me. You can see we're at 2.3 million of net income in my working budget. When I go ahead and change that and go select my Budget Pass 1, our P&L and all of our KPIs are going to go ahead and update, and we can see the change to that net income there as well. So ensuring we know what version we're working in is nice because we can also go in and pin these to be looking at a specific area of our plan, or they can stay dynamic based on which aspect of our forecast we want to go ahead and take a look at. Last thing I'll show here before we actually build one out on the fly here is some of that active dashboarding in action, right? So the reason we like bringing this in this way is so we can go ahead and do our planning all in one centralized place. And 95% of the customers we talk to, what's the biggest driver on the bottom line of their P&L is going to go ahead and be their workforce. So ensuring that we can have a good gauge into our headcount and go ahead and take a look at our salaries, our benefits, and taxes is going to go ahead and be huge. So this dashboard right here is giving us great insight into headcount metrics. What's really nice about this, we can go ahead and drill on down into those and get additional dimensionality by any of our dimensions that we want to go ahead and do. And then we can go ahead and actually build out our models here. So when I go ahead and I bring in my workforce planning sheet here, you can see we have that entire model down below. You can see right now we're taking a look at headcount, 152.6. What's that 0.6 coming from? Well, it's a prorated person that's with us for 60% of the month, gets us an accurate gauge. If I come on here and I see Paul Walsh is with us, and he actually left the organization in September 2024, I go ahead and key that user in here, and then I can go ahead and save that change. And what's really nice about this is as I make the update to my model, my KPIs, boom, they update. Now our salary per FTE changes, our headcount changes. So we can have real-time insight into what we're actually doing with the KPIs that are important for us. So really nice feature of leveraging that active dashboarding functionality.
Yeah, and I think you said a few really important things there too. As you're making changes to your sheets, you're seeing the immediate update to all of your charts, graph styles. That just goes back to the idea of, we are having our customers complete the planning process inside of a dashboard. So actual planning occurs inside of a dashboard. That's huge for Workday Adaptive Planning.
100%, 100%. It's definitely a big differentiator of Adaptive versus some other just pure analytics dashboarding tools out there. Is, sure, they can give you some great charts too, but we're going to get all of the analytics and insight you need while also making the updates to your plan there. So what we went ahead and did now, just to showcase, Adaptive is all drag and drop, no code, no script. You and the team can build these out. We went ahead and we made a new Planning Pulse dashboard. You guys can see a lot of the great KPIs and charts you have at your disposal. When I go ahead and I say I want to make this an active dashboard, right? How do we do that? Well, that's bringing our sheets where we actually do our modeling into the same area. I can go ahead and now go select my sheet. I want to go ahead and recreate some of that workforce planning, right? I go find that model for me. I go ahead and I select it. I can quickly drag and drop and make the size of this the appropriate amount. And then I can go ahead and make this as big or as small as I want it to be. What's also really great about this here is you guys can see all the options we have here, right? We've got a lot of different KPIs or charts or analytics you guys can do. So now to build these out and actually pin them to something is quite simple, really. You can come on in here and I know I'm working my workforce planning model. I want to leverage my headcount data. I go ahead and I select headcount, right? I want to go ahead and do a pie chart. I go ahead and I grab my pie chart. I come on in here. I add a new account, and salaries expense is important for us to take a look at, right? I bring in my salary account and say, salary looks great to look at it for 1.6 million, but we need dimensionality behind that. We need additional layers of detail. I break this down by a specific dimension. I go open up that dimension, and I want to take a look now at salary by function. And you can quickly come on in, update that, salary by function. If I want to look at that as a percentage view, if I want to look at that as a dollars view, I can quickly go ahead and update that as well. And then you can go ahead and format these however you want, right? If you have a specific color scheme you and the company want to follow, you want to put in your company's color scheme, you can go ahead and edit all of this, right? These are all super, super customizable. You guys can quickly and easily add in whatever detail you want here, right? I can quickly come on in and add in the headcount. And then, you can come on in here, leverage any of these, right? Or geomaps is another really cool one. If you guys want to go in and apply longitude and latitude metrics for where your people sit, or maybe you want to do that for quota or revenue by our different locations, right? We see a lot of our customers leverage geomaps for that. You can go ahead and quickly and easily do some version over version waterfalls or funnels, right? You guys have a lot of options at your disposal. And these KPIs, dashboards, charts, really so easy to build out, right? I can come on in here. Maybe now we want to do a column chart. I can open this up and I want to take a look at what's my bonus expense taking a look at. I can go ahead and see my month over month bonus. I want to break that down. And I want to look at that maybe by location, right? I come on in here. All right. Now we've got a bonus by location, right? Here, I think I did that, Matt, in about 2 minutes, right? And
I was going to say,
how
you've
easy
done
that is to
just
do.
an amazing job highlighting the ease of use inside of a dashboard. It's literally drag and drop functionality. In 2.5 minutes, you put together this dashboard, and folks can come in and begin planning right now and be able to answer questions. If we put in 10 new hires, what is this going to look like? What is our salary by function? What's our headcount going to look like? And get the immediate answers to some of those questions that they're being asked. So great job demonstrating how quick and easy it is to set this up. I really appreciate that, Beau.
Yeah,
You
100%.
you hit on a lot of things there with the drag and drop functionality, the different types of charts and graphs and pulling sheets on, pulling text box. We talked a lot about links to reports. There's so much that can be done inside of a dashboard. And again, we can drive all of our users one place in order to complete the planning process. So I'm fired up, like you said, about dashboards. I'm really glad that we decided to do that as one of our episodes here at the beginning of the Planning Pulse podcast. We'll see you all again next week. Thank you for your time, and